Let's get going. Let me introduce myself, Maurice Stabella. I've been sitting in the CISO chair for a couple decades, three-time, I guess I would say Fortune 10. Started at General Motors, and I have to tell you, it's a great story, but went from cable guy to CISO at General Motors. It took 27 years, but a great story. And then after that, I took the early retirement. I was still in my 40s because I literally started GM when I was like 17, 18 years old. Then went from there to Harman Kardon, JBL Speakers. Many of you are probably familiar with that. Was their global CISO. Um, Harman Kardon JBL got acquired by Samsung and then was one of five CISOs over at Samsung. But great to be here today, co-moderating this particular topic. Um, and we've got a great sponsor, Dimium, who I'll be introducing later on. But today we'll be talking about AI at full speed. And boy, is it ever. And why governed data access cannot lag behind. And just FYI, and I know folks are still joining here, but we've got some giveaways that we're going to do at the very end of the event. So stick around until the end. And I will tell you, I think we've got maybe a half dozen, or no, a half or a dozen of these that we're going to give away today. Your participation in today's event actually increases the odds of being selected. So come off mute and let's have some interaction today. This is the agenda. We've done our early check-in. We've did some introductions. As I mentioned, I'll sort of be moderating the roundtable for the first 20 minutes here. And at the bottom of the hour, we'll bring on Dimium to continue the conversation. A quick commercial. If you enjoy these digital lunch and learn events, typically we have a few every month, and you could see what that calendar looks like by going over to cxoinsight.com. That's INSYTE. But if you hit in style, as many people just they type in style all the time, you'll still get the agenda. So with that, there are a few news announcements that I thought we would look at to kind of put everything in motion with our topic of AI and data leakage and so forth. So recently, Forbes article, McDonald's, if you haven't heard about this one yet, very interesting AI breach revealed what I guess we'll call the dark side of automated recruitment. When a person gets recruited or you're looking for a job over at McDonald's, it was done. I don't know if they're still doing it, but it was done by an AI bot initially to determine whether or not you were a candidate. And via some data leakage from that AI bot, millions of applicants' data was exposed. So interesting article if you want to read more about that on Forbes. Medical Economics back in May, healthcare workers are leaking patient data through AI tools and cloud apps. The Guardian, not so much AI, but still in the news this week. Louis Vuitton says UK customer data stolen in cyber attack, and that's hit many Louis Vuitton centers throughout Europe. Yahoo Finance AI security gap. Why governance and developer support must catch up. I don't think anyone can deny that there is an AI security gap today. So we've seen a lot of news articles about that. And then CSO Magazine, one of the latest and greatest AI apps out there. I believe it's pronounced, is it Grok? For those of you that
It's
maybe
Grok.
Grok, more familiar with this one than I am. There's just so many coming out.
You need to read Asimov.
Okay, but with Grok 4, AI breach within 48 hours of that being released. So a lot going on there. But let's start the conversation. This is where you guys come off mute and don't be shy. So we know that right now with our traditional governance models, it's really difficult for them to keep pace with the rapid adoption of Gen AI, agentic AI. I mean, you would have to be changing your governance model every single month, right? And so with that, I want to hear from the audience. How confident are you that your current data governance model it can keep up with the speed of Gen AI, agentic AI adoption? Um, so with that, let's start with Michael. Michael's got his hand up.
I'm absolutely confident that the current data governance models that we have cannot keep up with
Cannot
Gen
keep up.
AI
Okay.
and Gen AI adoption. The most important things that I've seen is making sure that you are protecting the data and educating your staff, because one of the biggest leaks that I have found for AI into AI is people who are, handing it data and saying, I'd like an analysis of this, not realizing that that data is going to be, if you do not have a specialized account that is going to say, you may not use this data publicly, that data is now in the programming of the AI, and you are going to have that exposed to the world. There is nothing you're going to do about it. So your current model just doesn't work because your people are literally handing the data to
Yeah,
your AIs.
absolutely. Thank you for that, Michael. Ravi.
Yeah, as I introduced myself, I'm part of the telecommunications industry, and we are the largest OEM for all the tier one operators in US.
Oh, wow.
And the challenge that we have currently is that there's a lot of cyber attacks, not only in our systems but also through our operators' systems, and especially since we are considered critical infrastructure, that puts a additional burden. We have tons of mechanisms in place, but with the latest AI agents and so on, the vulnerabilities are becoming much exposed.
Yeah.
And it's really challenging to keep up to how do we differentiate between what is public domain and what is proprietary, and then what is like ultra
Yeah.
ultra critical, So I'm all for any ideas that you guys are looking into and so on. Obviously, we as a company have tons of investment in this space, but the space at which this whole thing is moving, I think we are having a hard time keeping up.
Yeah. And Ravi, you're not the only one. I got to tell you, you're not the
Yeah.
only one. Nadeem, a quick comment from you.
I could not agree more with my friends. I I doubt if anybody is in a position they could confidently say that the governance model is good enough at this point. The reason is very obvious that obviously technology evolves, but what we are experiencing with AI is definitely much more than whatever we have experienced even in the last decade.
Yeah.
So I guess that is one of the reason I'm here to kind of listen what my peers are experiencing and what they are doing, because I guess it's all about talking with each other and kind of seeing and kind of learning what other people are doing to manage this challenge. Basically, there's no easy way. There are not going to be any better ways other than talking with your colleagues and the other industry leaders to understand what the challenge is and what are the steps they are taking.
Yeah, Nadeem, thank you for that. Andre,
So,
Yes,
quick comment.
Maurice. I can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. I'm pretty much confident with our organization. However, as a risk management consultant, the conversations that I'm having with prospects and clients basically is telling me that they're not confident because they have implemented AI through an organization, and also the employees, as we were talking about the other day, the employees are already using it. So my advice to them, and this talks on the second strategy is, or question is, we have to do security first. We have to look at security. We have to look at governance. We have to look at the policies and all that. We need to put that first. And I think quite a few of the organizations didn't put it first, so they're already behind. And that's where the issues are coming or risk arise.
No, thanks, Andre. So I did change the question up on you guys. I went to the next slide here, talking a little bit more about what strategies are we using to ensure role-based access? Because we know today there's this growing challenge trying to enforce and secure role-based access controls that's going to align with, well, especially with compliance, whether it's GDPR or SOX or some other requirement. So I am wondering, what strategies are you using today to secure role-based access, especially when we're talking about sensitive data in AI-powered applications? And I'm going to go to Manny. I know, Manny, you had your hand up on the previous question, but if you're able to pivot a little bit on this, I would love to hear your thoughts.
Sure, absolutely. And actually, my response is to both the questions. So think about it this way. 2016, Cambridge Analytica, Facebook, the whole problem that popped up over there. And then if you fast forward from 2016 to today, we are in 25. Have we really solved the core problem that caused the Cambridge Analytica problem, which is, number one, are we sure of the data that's going into our stockpiles before we apply AI to it? The other aspect of it is, what are we doing to validate what we got? See, what I mean by that is everybody, even today, is hungry for data. If I look at my sales guys, if I look at my producers, if I look at my marketers, everyone's collecting data willy-nilly for their own reasons. And they're trying to use that without validating, is that the right data? Have I got it the right way? And am I doing the right thing with it? And when you're not answering those questions, no matter how fast our AI structures are designed to give us responses, we will keep stumbling over our own feet all the time. So I think my answer is more to your second question, but it roots in the first question. It's about making sure we are using the right data before we get to role-based access also. There's a prior step that needs to happen.
Yeah, what I hear is that garbage in, garbage out sort of analogy there, Manny.
Yep.
Robert, you got your hand up. What's your thought?
Yeah, so we're actually tying things down. I think the more important thing to do is, of course, data governance is extremely important, right? And you're absolutely right. It's never going to keep up. You got to constantly be looking at it. But we're tying everything down by the role. We're creating security groups for each individual role. So, for example, operators out in the plant don't need access to anything other than their air gap system, right? So, and that's all they get. They don't even get corporate email at all. So we try to lock that down.
We did the exact same thing over at JBL. Same thing.
Yeah. And so for like the senior executives, as an example, we have a highly confidential internal and external group set up, and the highly confidential groups only get access to the more important data. But I think more importantly, above everything else, it's going to be constant training and policy. Working with the users, letting them know what's going on. And we block out all external AI models, right? They can't even get they can't, from a corporate machine, they can't even get to ChatGPT, they can't get to Gemini, they can't get to Grok, right? Okay. And we're rolling out Copilot to select individuals only to start out, just to see if we can get some actual ROI from it, or if they're actually using it or leveraging it. And again, we're going to control that through role-based security as well.
All right. Good feedback, Robert. Solomon.
Yeah, I was going to say is I think, the core issue here is we're outsourcing things to the cloud. and you become dependent on whoever the provider is doing things. So the first question, I think, was a little bit naive from that perspective. But the way we handle that, the way we recommend handling that, is you go to private instances, you air gap systems, and then very much to the point that I think it was Michael basically talked about it, which is from a role-based standpoint, you limit that. Who has access to AI tools, and you have a limited set of AI tools that you work with. I think the final thing is you can't bury your head in the sand, which is a tendency I've seen in a lot of organizations.
Mhm.
And what that does is that drives people to bring your own AI to work. So I will simply
Yes,
use
it does.
ChatGPT, and I will have, as a result of that, an unauthorized release of personal identifying information taking place. And people don't realize that they're doing that. So you've got to have a channel that's available to them, that they know they have access to the tools they need, and you're simply going through that process and being responsive.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. I know we heard, I think it was Robert, he's got everything locked down, right? But a lot of us don't. So as we're increasingly interacting with sensitive data, real-time AI, from the perspective of visibility, and Partha, I'm going to call on you for this because I know that you've had your hand up for a while, but Partha, from the perspective of visibility into, which users, whether those are human users or AI, um, do you know what's being accessed? What type of data, when, and for what purpose?
So, a couple of things I wanted to lay the groundwork first.
Yes.
Get the data governance right in any medium to large organization where data security is a multi-year journey. Okay. I've done this. Second is, it's not just data governance. You have to have the IAM also done right.
Okay.
These are the two things, right? And third thing, which needs to be done, especially if you're writing agents in your organization, that is, you're going through agentic flow, the app security, especially with open source software, has to be done right.
Just out of curiosity, and by the way, those are all great comments and feedback. I am wondering, from a visibility perspective, is it more shadow AI that's going on within the organization? Or do you have complete visibility right now?
No, we don't have visibility. But what I'm saying is, you cannot stop the progress of AI in your organization till you get these things right.
Yeah.
You have to understand them. So what do you do next? Okay. That is, you want to minimize that risk, because AI is just magnifies all the risks that you have in your organization.
Understood.
So what do you do to minimize it? It just amplifies. You'll have a lot more data exfiltration, a lot more data leakage in the next few months.
And by the way,
right?
if we're not able to call on you or get to your question, please feel free to fire up that chat, because we've got some folks that are monitoring that chat amongst yourselves, of course. But if you've got some feedback, a great comment, we'd love to hear about it. And if we don't hear it live, let's at least get it on the chat. Dwayne, you had your hand up, by the way. I want to still call on you to see if you had a comment on this, Dwayne.
Sure. I just wanted to, echo some of what Robert and Solomon said. We do have a fairly locked down system, but nothing's ironclad.
Okay.
We do monitor the use of AI, and we watch across our firewall, what SaaS apps are being accessed, but also what AI sites. We do not, by policy, allow the use of public AI. We do have Microsoft E5 licensing for all staff. And my understanding is that provides us with a tenant of Copilot where our data that gets uploaded remains in our MS 365 environment. It doesn't go public. And so that's what we're doing at the moment, trying to monitor where it's being used outside of our organization. We do have access across the board. All staff have access to MS Copilot. We're not limiting it. We are a knowledge industry, and we believe everybody in the industry, has to take advantage of it in the coming months. I mentioned on the introductions like that saying, people aren't going to lose their jobs to AI. they're going to lose their jobs to people who know how to use AI.
Yes, exactly.
Right. And so we're not handicapping anybody in the organization by saying you're not in the right role to have access to AI. Right. But we are trying to keep it tight and maintained within our tenants and our repositories of information. Now, I'm not sure that's going to be 100%, but that's the objective at the moment.
Okay, great, great. Michael Weisberg, Mike, you still had your hand up?
Yeah, we also have a problem that relates directly to this visibility, and I don't know how many other people on this have similar experience, but I adjunct teach at a university, and let's just say, how many of you have checked the metadata in a Word document that you've received from a student or even from another employee in your organization? And when you talk about monitoring the use of data across the organization, how many of you find every once in a while that you're getting something that was written with an AI instead of by either the student or the person who's supposed to be giving you a report, even though you do not allow those necessarily through your company's policy? What I'm seeing, and as I mentioned over in the chat, is an awful lot of shadow AI going on that is very, very hard to monitor. Sometimes easier to discover than monitor.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael. Last question before I'm going to turn it over to our technology provider that's going to continue this conversation. But I think this last question really sums it all up. What is your biggest challenge right now when it comes to enabling fast, secure AI across your teams? Is it access? Is it control? Is it visibility? What's the biggest challenge? And this is, the last opportunity here for some of you. If you haven't raised your hand yet and want to participate, we'd love to hear your feedback on this. I'm going to first go with, let's go with Mark Harkin. Mark?
Yeah, thanks, Maurice. Yeah, a lot of people with doing the control just started just slamming the brakes and locking things down because I think too many organizations were very quick to say, "Oh, let's get on board with this and let everybody start hitting this stuff." Now, your biggest challenge is getting the visibility to know, okay, who not only had access, but who has access to what and how much stuff's out there. So the visibility is the biggest challenge, is getting your arms around all this so that you can start retrofitting or correcting some of the bad choices that may have been made early on in the AI rollout within some groups, because some groups get ahead of their skis and just don't think through putting the guardrails in and until it's too late.
Right. All right. Thanks, Mark. Andrew.
Yeah. This may, I think you've got, if we focus on the control and governance of these tools, that is certainly used to address the overall risk. Yeah. But, I think one of the things, if we're just focusing on data loss, but if we're also considering just risk to the company from misuse or overconfidence in tools and using those to drive decision making, that's where one of our biggest hangups within our organization is that there's too many instances of bad information coming out of some of these tools or missing key details that really seems to also play into this overall risk of utilization. I'm absolutely on board with this idea that if you don't know how to use it, and you could very well get left behind. But proving out the ROI and balancing it with the risk, both ethics, bad decision making based on information, and then also the overall loss of data has just proved to cause a slower adoption, I think, on our side.
Yeah, thank you for that, Andrew. And last but not least, here for this segment of the Lunch and Learn event, Ravi, what's your thought? Greatest risk right now?
When we went on this journey, we were very open-minded and kind of gave a broader access. And then one or two cyber attacks, we yanked out everything. And one of the gentlemen was talking about completely shut down and local LLMs and so on. Now we are struggling with the LLMs can do as much as what the data is available to them. And when you lock it down, my output, the way it used to be when it was a lot more open and wider access, has come down drastically. So my challenge now is, where do I find the right balance on the data governance? What can be exposed and what is absolutely off limits and so on,
Yeah.
right? We are very open for any kind of services support or tools enhancement, because I'm not seeing as much progress when we do this in-house.
All right, thank you. Well, let's transition over to our technology provider. I'd like to introduce Denzil. Denzil is the co-founder and CEO of Dimium. And Denzil, a lot of comments and feedback and interaction here. Really exciting to hear and to see that this is a topic that is absolutely at the top of everyone's priority. You should be able to share your screen, by the way. So we're looking forward to hearing what Dimium is doing in this space. You've heard some of the challenges for sure.
Well, thanks for the intro, Maurice. As mentioned, I'm Denzil Wessels, fortunate enough to be founder and CEO of Dimium. Dimium is a company that I've wanted to build for a while, and a lot of it kind of goes back to what a number of you mentioned. Kind of breaches. We've got nation state actors coming after information now, and we have to worry about governance, et cetera. There's a personal story that I had where, from the companies I've been at, like Zscaler and Juniper and those types of companies, we would always talk about, breaches related to, brand defamation, revenue loss, et cetera. But the right kind of information can even be loss of life. And, I witnessed, the private Manning breach that happened on the government side, turned into foreign mercenaries coming over to hunt someone's family down over here in the Bay Area where I live. So, the right information breach can lead to loss of life too. And back then, that's really what gave my, my conviction that we need to do something different to work with data. And what, we're here to kind of talk about, some of these foundational challenges facing, every enterprise adopting AI. And that's controlling what these new systems can see, do, and access in real time. Obviously, as we've been talking about, as AI agents become embedded in customer operations, analytics, workflows, traditional access controls or data controls aren't enough anymore. And what's needed is, a new model of governance, something built for speed, precision, and trust. And that's where we've been focused, is building this new layer. So, I think we can all agree that AI's been moving ridiculously fast, and that, the security tools that we've built from the past aren't keeping up and are trying to play catch up. And if we look at some of the numbers, only 24% of these Gen AI projects are considered secure. And, as we look across, let's say the Fortune 1000 IT leaders, everyone's worried about this AI related risk. And unfortunately, I think, as a lot of you pointed out, people are flying blind. There's hundreds of unsanctioned AI tools that are in use and no way to really see what data that they're touching. And obviously, AI breaches are already being reported and are increasing rapidly. I think, we saw the McDonald's one that happened the other day from some prompt injection. And last year, 73% of enterprises experienced at least one AI breach, and AI-driven attacks from nation-state actors were up 218%. So, if I think about it in the past, did we ever worry about nation states coming after individual companies? Yeah, that's changed a lot. Now we have nation states. So it really begs the question, what is the root of the problem? And, we set out to answer this question and found that, while protecting sensitive data is a top priority, a lot of the legacy security controls are actually restraining AI innovation. And for us, we actually did a study just to understand, what productivity AI brings to the market. And, I think as some of you are pointing out, without, leveraging AI, productivity drops. And what we found is we actually took an engineer's 30-day work output, and we were curious, how long would it take to achieve a similar goal with AI? And what we found is you could achieve that same result in 8 hours. So 8 hours to achieve 30 human days of work. So you can't afford to not take advantage of that, because if you don't, probably your competitors will and will leap ahead.
Denzel, Michael had a quick question. Michael.
Yes, one of the questions I have to you again, I'm curious to some degree about some of the numbers, because you're talking about the 30 days worth of work, etc. What has been your experience with, I found that when people are using AI, they do have to spend a great deal of time validating what the AI has provided them. Do you really find there's that much of a reduction in time?
I think absolutely. I think we've looked at it several times. I think it also comes down to the task you're doing. If you're doing kind of your basic development tools where there's patterns of life that AI has been trained on, or software patterns it's been trained on, it's pretty good at repeating those. If you're trying to build something new that hasn't existed before, it takes a lot more work to get to that point. But I think your run-of-the-mill tasks that happen, it actually speeds things up exponentially, is what we've found.
Yeah. Manny had a quick question as well. I just want to fit him in. Yeah, Manny?
Real quick. How often have you seen your AI give you insights that you haven't thought about? I mean, as in actually bringing forward the intelligence aspect of AI, has it pointed you in directions that you haven't even thought about?
I think, if you look at really what it is, I think we were talking about this a little bit earlier. When you share your data, you have to worry about it going into what I look at as the public domain. And I think, doing basic things that are well known in public domain is straightforward. I think what you're really getting, and kind of a story that I would use for this is, my daughter, when she graduated high school last year, she wanted to write a graduation speech for one of her classmates. And so I sat down, I said, hey, let's look at using AI to do this. And it wrote a fantastic speech. Why? Because it was the blend of what everybody wants to see. So it kind of hit a spot that made everybody happy. Now, did it give any novel and unique sentiment that was there? No, not really. It's just kind of rolled the average of everyone together and gave something kind of middle of the road. So I think when you look at it, you can find insights that are there if you know how to ask properly and pull the right data out of it. Otherwise, you're kind of getting back something that is, generic and benign and common, if you will.
Yeah. Thanks for that question. Okay, let's continue.
Yeah. So we found that these solutions weren't really built for AI workflows and are facing three major challenges. The first one is the layer of system-specific controls have created complexity that can slow down AI deployment by weeks or months, as developers are forced to use multiple security mechanisms, protocols, and policy. The second one is, all these legacy tools that we had have not been built to cover dynamic AI workloads, such as, RAG, retrieval augmented generation, context engineering, and AI inference. And the third one is kind of the mix of these system-specific solutions is revealing kind of new AI-specific security gaps. And obviously, we've been hearing about these in the news, right? Context leakage, prompt injection, agent overreach, etc. And so while these existing controls are still needed, teams are now trying to reevaluate their data protection with this new lens on AI. And so what Dimium does is Dimium governs data, governs real-time access to sensitive data across AI agents, dashboards, APIs, and internal tools. And where Dimium sits in the world is we sit in between the users or AI agents that you happen to be using and the actual data itself. And we've built a platform that is able to analyze each request on the fly as it's moving through to the user or to the agents. And with us, there's no need for duplicating data, no need for staging, and there's no residual logs left behind. Instead, what we do is we apply policy before any data is exposed, and then we log that access externally so you have full transparency on exactly what data has been exposed or used. And this gives the teams kind of the safety of strong governance without the friction of going and rebuilding the entire stack that we've built over the years and invested in. And this we're doing with what we're calling, Dimium's new ghost layer. It is a new approach to solving this problem. Now, we can drill into this a little bit to see how Dimium is helping close the gaps in the existing systems that are out there. Right? If we look at AI control tools that filter prompts after exposure, we're preventing exposure up front. I really loathe and detest technologies that will come after the fact and say, hey, you got your hand burnt. Why don't we stop your hand from getting burnt on day one, right from the get-go? ETL tools, which everyone knows we use to duplicate data and with transforms around it, we're able to govern it in place where it lives without that duplication. And semantic layers that proxy queries for like BI tools, we can enforce these policies instantly at data access time. And if we look at the DSPs in the world, they're masking data statically. We're doing it dynamically per request. So imagine being able to create the right lens of data at the right time for the right agent or the right user. And DSPMs, that everyone's using, they can help classify what's in your data, but what's really happening at access time, what was in the data when it was used? Did a social security number sneak into a name column for some data example and get exfiltrated? These are the things that we want to catch. So Dimium is addressing all of these in one really lightweight layer. Now, if we look at this is roughly like what what a modern data governance actually looks like. Let's call it the spaghetti noodle slide over here. It's complex, it's fragmented, and hard to control. And if we think about it, we've got dozens of systems that we're trying to plug in, things like identity, whether it's IAM, OAuth, SAML, OIDC. We have, data sources across, warehouses, lakes, cloud apps, legacy databases. And then in addition to that, we've got now things, like BI tools that we've had for a while, AI agents, APIs, and all of them are trying to interact with sensitive data. So what Dimium does is Dimium doesn't ask you to replace any of this. We drop in as a real-time policy layer sitting in between all of it. And we unify that governance across everything without re-architecting anything. And to me, that's always been important, is how do we give you something that you can put in with very low effort that brings high value to your organization? I've kind of always thought about product delivery as, I know it sounds silly, but pizza delivery, right? It's got to show up hot and fresh in an hour or you get your money back kind of approach. So why can't we put in a layer that's very lightweight and bring that value instantly?
Denzel, 2 questions from the chat. Real quickly, Solomon asked, how well does this work if an employee is using a VPN to encrypt their traffic? And then I've got a follow-up question after that.
The great question. Look, I think me and my team's background actually comes from building a lot of the end solutions on the market. So from all the way back to Neoterra, F5 Networks, Juniper, Pulse Secure, Avanti, HPE, Zscaler, Cisco. That's kind of my team's background. So we've been in and around VPN for quite a while, and VPN has been a great transport, obviously, to connect people remotely. But that challenge of, in order for us to connect people to data today, we're using, I want to say legacy tools like VPN to connect people to data. So what do we say? If I need to let's say, connect a BI tool to my data, what do we tend to do? We VPN those people into the network where the data lives, and we connect them directly to that data silo. So where we would sit in that picture is you could still use the VPN to connect them in, but instead of connecting them directly into the data silo where the data lives, they'll connect into the ghost layer. And that way you can control the lens of data that is getting, consumed by the user across that VPN. So yeah, great question, actually.
All right. Yeah, good. And then Partha is asking, is Dimium MCP enabled? That is, functions as a MCP server. And I think he's asking that because, this would allow all the clients that are MCP enabled to work with Dimium.
Well, that is a fantastic question. And if I were to click a slide, here you go. Let's talk about the ghost layer in MCP. I think that's exactly where we'd love to go. So let's drill into that. So we're talking about this ghost layer, a new way to govern this layer. So if it's a real-time governance layer that connects to all your systems, like we were talking about a second ago, and it uses our neural engine to discover metadata around your data, and it helps you understand data sensitivity, and is able to enforce policy per role, per request, per purpose. So no more delays, no staging, no duplication of data, no shadow systems. It's governance that's built for modern AI architectures and modern data usage. And the way we're able to do this let's drill into the next layer and actually talk about some of these tools, is we're talking about everything flowing through one centralized policy layer where we can unify policy. And what we have is endpoints that are native for each business need. And I'm going to go through those. The first one is GhostDB. So think of this as a virtual SQL database that is ideal for you to expose your data to dashboards and BI tools. So you can connect your BI tools like Power BI, Looker, directly to GhostDB. And once you've done that, you can control the lens of data to anybody consuming data through that and have a full visibility and audit trail. Ghost API allows you to create APIs and return structured governed endpoints for building, access to data for apps and integration with third-party tooling. And then the last one, I wanted to touch on is Ghost MCP. So back to the MCP question. It's an endpoint designed to advertise data for agentic workflow and LLM interactions. And so if any of you are familiar with MCP, it is really a service advertising tool to agentic workflows or chatbots saying, look, here's a set of tools or data that you have access to. We use Ghost MCP to advertise things like Ghost API into your agentic workflows so that you can then now control the lens and have full governance around that data. So all three of these endpoints enforce policy before data is returned. So nothing leaks, nothing slips through. You're consciously deciding what the lens of data looks like for any of those consumers.
Denzel,
Yes.
Michael is asking, when it comes to the whole ghost concept, I mean, it seems like it would work well in a greenfield environment, but, how does it work in what I would call a heavy legacy environment, which many large organizations have today?
Yeah, so when that's actually a great question, is how does that work in kind of a legacy world? I think this is, first and foremost, we designed the support for legacy tooling. So if we think about it, some of the data that's very, very hard to use is, imagine you're a bank, you have data sitting on an AS400 in IBM DB2, and you want to be able to use that with modern apps. Are you going to go and change that IBM DB2 environment to modernize it? No, you have to really use tooling to, exfiltrate or export that information to put it in an ETL or an additional data lake somewhere in order to be able to use it. What we're able to do is use the Ghost and actually consume data out of IBM DB2 in real time so that you can now leverage that data that would have been buried in the organization. You can now use it in a modern way in real time through this Ghost layer, if that makes sense. And the reason we coined the term Ghost layer for it is it pays homage to the fact that no data actually persists in this layer that we add. It happens in real time as data is accessed, and we don't store anything. So if we think of best practices for data, you don't want to expose your data and copy it to everybody else's systems. And us as a vendor, you really don't even want to have us storing your data or exposing the data. So we've built it in such a way where it's ultimately secure and not cached or even left behind. So hopefully that answered that question for you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so let's go even a little bit deeper into MCP. So obviously this is on one of these new endpoints for connecting data to AI. And if we look at kind of how it works in practice is, like I was saying before, MCP advertises these tools and capabilities to the AI agent. And one of those tools that we advertise is Ghost API. And let's say, MCP advertises an API service, and let's say it's look up account number for someone. When that API is called, Ghost API intercepts every agent retrieval request, maps it to a policy, and enforces your least privileged access to the data itself. So we're creating a specific lens of data at access time. So think of just in time.
Denzel,
yes.
When we look at this, Dwayne's asking, in terms of architecture, is this a virtual appliance in the cloud? Is it physical on-prem? Is it a service offering in the public cloud?
Yeah, fantastic question. Look, my kind of one-liner that I always use is, look, there's no cloud, there's other people's computers. Let's call it that.
Yes.
And, we've built the solution where you can get it from us as a SaaS, where we will, run the stack in our SaaS environment. But it's also been built for extremely sensitive environments. So let's say you need to run it on the back of a nuclear submarine under the ocean. That stack can be run privately in that environment offline and still add that exact same value. So it's designed with this modern thinking where you really need the flexibility and really based on the needs for your organization and the type of data that you hold. If you're protecting nation state secrets, you probably want to host that in your own data center, for example.
All right, good, thank you.
Okay. So once going back to MCP, so once we've advertised these tools and Ghost APIs connected it, we've obviously created that specific lens. So now the AI agents, whether they're internal, customer facing, they're only seeing what they're supposed to and nothing more. And if we were to take a very, very simple example and, look at it. So let's say, if we drill into how we can make this data dynamic for the user and the role, how are we able to do that? Well, we plug into your directory first and foremost. So whether that's your Oktas, your Entra IDs, SAML, OIDC, kind of the list I gave before, and we enforce policy based on the user's role or agent and the data inside. And this means that marketing can see totally different fields, as compared to developers, for example, and third parties, only see what is approved for them. So we enforce policy per field, per record, and per session automatically. And you can see what's really different is we're crafting the appropriate lens of data for the appropriate use in real time at access time. Now I want to kind of drill into how we manage policy and how we're able to create these different lenses of data per request. So, how are we able to do that? Basically, when we consume the identity and group information from the directory you already have, and then with our policy engine and our neural network, we're able to apply transforms to create the right lens for the right person or agent in real time. So we're consuming your group attributes from your directories you already have. You're not recreating all that. You're just mapping that across to our system where we can do the transforms. And think of, one of those could be, let's say for PCI reasons, bank accounts need to be obfuscated or blocked. But you may have certain users that actually need a certain account access. We can actually look at that information inside, and it's not just static. We're actually looking at the entities as they flow through in real time and making that determination. So it's not static, it's dynamic based on the data that is actually moving. So this one layer that we've been talking about powers all the use cases. So in AI, we prevent over-permissioned access. Around applications, we're protecting data sharing via APIs. And in analytics, we're eliminating the need for risky copies of the data or duplication of the data. And everything is logged, tracked, and auditable through our platform.
And Denzel, you've got about 4 minutes left.
Well, that's perfect. So, I would just summarize. Obviously, I think we can all tell, AI has been moving incredibly fast. And unfortunately, governance can't be bolted on later. It's something we have to solve sooner. And Dimium gives you a way to govern the sensitive data in real time without slowing innovation. And if you're building with AI agents, sharing with partners, or modernizing your stack, obviously, we'd love to help. We're working, we'd love to work with you, and I'd love to open it up to any questions that you guys have, questions or comments.
I'm going to throw one out there that Jim Huddleston had. Jim was wondering, are we going to need additional fields in our directory for your tool to manage access?
No, you don't. Honestly, the way we've built it, I dislike technologies that you have to bolt in that forces you to go and change your infrastructure that you have. And when I say infrastructure, even your directories. So we've been designed where we can just plug in, consume your groups. Now, that doesn't mean that you maybe don't want to create additional groups for some of these use cases. That may be something you want to create in your directory. But that's really kind of how you want to define your roles for it. We don't force any changes, and that includes changes on the data infrastructure. I think our average customer rollout time, like I was saying before, takes about an hour to set this up. And you end up with all these benefits. And the only reason we're able to achieve that is we're not asking you to go and change your stack and your infrastructure.
All right. And then one last question. Jeff McConnell is asking, who watches the watchers? Like, how do you ensure that policy? How are you ensuring that the policies that you apply are properly applied? I don't know if you got an answer for that.
Yeah, so this is have you crafted policies correctly? I think I would kind of look at that, right? Because let's face it, humans can make mistake with crafting policy. I think, coming from the zero trust access control side of the world, I've seen this so many different occasions. One of the reasons we're looking at the actual business rules and the governance rules for the data. So you describe your governance rules that you need to live by. Then we're analyzing the data as it flows all the time, including what's in the data, so that we can bring the checks and balances to the table to make sure that your governance rules haven't been violated, for example. And I think that's the really incredible part of what we've built, is the ability to understand that data and the language of the data and how it's governed as the data flows. And that's kind of how we bring those checks and balances to the table.
All right, Denzel, fantastic lunch and learn event. Actually, I think one of our best. I mean, as a former 3-time CISO myself, I fully understand, and of course, I'm heavily involved, still consulting many companies, and the time is now. If you're not securing your AI apps, your analytics, your applications, you are just being left behind. And with that thought, in terms of AI at full speed and Dimium at full throttle, we've got some RC boats giveaways that we're going to do here. Let me call a few folks that participated today for that RC boat giveaway. If I call your name, do me a favor, send me a private chat with your shipping address, an email, a phone number, and I will get that boat ready over to you. I'm sorry it couldn't be a real boat or a yacht, for a nice summer cruise, but these are still fun to put in the water. So real quickly, is Solomon still on? Solomon Israel.
Still here.
Okay, Solomon, congratulations. You're going to get one of these RC boats. Send me a private chat, Solomon. Again, shipping address, phone number for tracking, and an email. Dwayne, are you still on?
Yep, I'm still here.
Dwayne got an RC boat for you as well. Thank you for
Oh,
your
thank you.
participation. Lots of great questions, Dwayne, and feedback. I appreciate it. Partha, are you still on?
Yeah.
Partha, congratulations. Thanks for attending. We appreciate your comment and feedback. I've got an RC boat for you. Send me a private chat, Partha. Shipping address, email, phone number. And if you guys can't figure out how to use the private chat feature, just email me afterwards with that information. Ravi, great to have you here, Ravi. I've got an RC boat for you as well. I see you on the screen there.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Send me your shipping address, email, phone number. We'll get that over to you. Manny, are you still on? Manny going once?
Introduce yourself.
Say hello. Sure. Hey, Alan. I'm the CTO of Banking Financial
Hold on,
Services
I
at
gotta
Brilio.
fix that.
I oversee
Manny going
all
once,
the,
Manny going twice. And it looks like Manny was actually on the other line when he came off mute. So he is here. I will follow up with Manny afterwards. Michael, are you still on, Mike?
Absolutely.
All right, Mike. Got an RC boat for you. We'll get that over to you.
Thank you.
Robert Siegel or Seeger. Robert?
Still here.
Okay, Robert, congratulations. Got an
Awesome.
RC boat for you. We'll get that over to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Andre, are you there? Andre Payne?
I'm still here. Maurice, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
You bet, Andre. I've got, I think we can do another two of these here. Mark Harkin, are you still on?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, Mark, you betcha. Got one for you. And Andrew, are you still on? Andrew, is it Melchius?
Hey, yeah, sorry, I am.
Okay, Andrew, I've got a RC boat for you. Thanks for joining.
Oh, awesome.
Great
Thanks.
questions. Send me a private chat, shipping address, email, phone. And once I send that boat out, I delete that information. So I won't have your shipping address after that goes out. Again, guys, if you enjoyed today's discussion, would love to have you at our next event. And with that said, hope you guys all have a great weekend, and we'll be sending you some information if you're interested concerning Dimium later on, either this weekend or maybe next week. I know that they would love to speak to each of you and continue the conversation one-on-one. So again, thanks for joining and have a great week.